Welcome back to the Convo Couch, everyone. Pasta Jardula here.
And I'm Fiorella.
And Jonny Sue is on those ones and twos. Fam, you share, I'll talk. Because once Fam is like a lion in a cage today. And once that lion gets out, she's going to go tearing stuff up. She's had some good coffee. She's ready to rock and roll. What a time in history to do a show today and stuff. And I do apologize to all the people out there who are getting a little upset for me constantly talking about the fact that I will not vote for Joe Biden. I will not vote for Donald Trump.
Why are you apologizing?
Well, some people, it's getting them a little agitated and a little touchy. We even had a friend who said to me today, well, why are you talking about the bourgeois electoral system? Why aren't you talking about the work in the streets and all the activism? And I'm like, dude, you've been on our show talking about your activism. We provided you a platform for that, donkey.
Who the fuck? I'm sorry, you guys. I've had it today with people. We literally constantly talk about the grassroots here. That it wasn't letting me share our video just now. It's kind of
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard that out there. We need your help. Like, share, subscribe. Amadeus, we're coming for you early. We see your comment. BS. It means a lot, and we're going to talk about that right now because really, to tell you the truth, fam, it might be walking shoes for me, period, because I think some lines are being drawn when it comes to certain issues, and certain issues for certain people are not on the table. They're very much glossed over. They're overlooked.
Hypocrites.
And but also I think it's a form of ignorance that they don't realize how badly it will come back for them. Remember the whole stories we used to learn in school? They came for this person, they came for that person.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't say anything, so eventually they came for you. That's what it is when we talk about our civil liberties, when we talk about our freedom of speech, when we talk about our freedom of the press. If we don't protect it, if we don't lay that down as the foundation of our democracy, we don't get the nice things that we want, like a Green New Deal or Medicare for all or whatnot. It's quite scary to see a lot of people just thinking that this is just a bunch of BS, what we're about to talk about. I think a lot of people know. But once again, ladies, like, share, subscribe. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 65 people watching on our YouTube. We have a few on the Rokfin. There's only 4. Jackie, what's up? Larry, we love you. Here, bring that in close.
Yep.
And thank you to all our Patreons and everybody out there. Fam, let's just jump right into it.
Well, I just want to say, it's not even defining civil liberties. What is that? Because sometimes when people say our civil liberties, because a lot of the right has taken
freedoms.
But the right has kind of taken that and ran with it because they've been more concerned with it because they tend to be more about issues of freedom and stuff. But neither party right now is caring about that. Now, there are more Republicans working in bipartisan bills with this lone Democrat and independents as well to strengthen this. And it's really weird to me because people just automatically have this sort of need to, as soon as somebody on the right says something, you can't touch it. And it's a really dangerous route to go in because that's not how life works.
Yeah.
People who you hate are going to say things that are right. And you can't pretend those things aren't right just because you hate those people.
It's very tribal behavior.
It's very tribal. And the left thinks only the right is tribal. But the left is just as tribal and as authoritarian as the right during certain topics and during certain things. And if we don't understand that, we're not going to get past this, and we're not going to be able to, we're going to go into a civil war type of thing and nothing's going to get resolved. It's just going to be chaos. We're going to be perpetually kept under by this fascist government. So, fam, let's start out with Christine Assange, who is Julian Assange's mother. And she, a few days ago, thanked Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard for her bill, in particular, the first one we're going to talk about. She said, U.S. Congress Rep. Tulsi Gabbard introduces bill to reform the Espionage Act and strengthen whistleblower protections. People like Edward Snowden and Julian Assange acted in the public interest to expose that impacted the American people. So Tulsi Gabbard introduced this bill, and we're going to go through it so you guys know. The bill is called H.R. 8452, and it's the bill to reform the Espionage Act and strengthen whistleblower protections. Okay, so
Which we also understand too. Like, once we go over this, it's very, very broad. It's very vague. It's not in particular, and it's been abused by different administrations, whether it be the Obama administration, and Donald Trump. They're abusing this particular act. So go right ahead, fam.
All right, so we're just going to go over some of this. Tulsi Gabbard introduced this bill, and it's called the Protect Brave Whistleblowers Act. It's intended to reform the Espionage Act to better protect the whistleblowers. She also introduced a resolution defending the actions of Edward Snowden, a whistleblower who exposed illegal and unconstitutional surveillance programs run by the U.S. government, and calling for charges against him to be dropped.
The NSA.
This legislation is also supported by Daniel Ellsberg, who was known best for the 1971 expose on the U.S. government conduct in the Vietnam War, and
who is it supported by?
Daniel Ellsberg.
Ellsberg?
Yes.
Ellsberg.
Yeah, I know Ellsberg.
I know Ellsberg. I know Flowers. I know them both. So.
And like Pasta said, this was the Pentagon Papers. He was charged in 1973 under the Espionage Act. Oh yeah, that is. Yeah. He is like Ellsberg is like we should get him on the show. I mean, he's just.
Which he had a lot of help in his time. It's kind of funny because right now you got Tulsi Gabbard going out there sticking up for Julian Assange and Edward Snowden. Daniel Ellsberg got a lot of help from Mike Gravel. Yep. Really, to tell you the truth, on the Senate floor from Alaska, and really to tell you, was able to be there to protect him, to put a light on this situation, and elevate Ellsberg's message.
And just to go off that, Daniel Ellsberg wrote an article on The Guardian not too long ago, about 6 years ago, where he was talking about how John Kerry went out there. He was on MSNBC, and he was propping up Daniel Ellsberg, saying people like Daniel Ellsberg are heroes, but Edward Snowden is a coward. And so Daniel Ellsberg wrote an op-ed defending Edward Snowden. And he actually, during the Assange trial, he was also out there saying, if I was able to get out of this, if I got protections, so should Julian Assange, so should have Edward Snowden. And it's not fair that this is happening to them. And I was able to be, looked at as a hero. And so his whole point in that article was that whistleblowers, because of the Espionage Act, can't come back and have a fair trial in America. They would forever have to be perpetually in hiding elsewhere, or if they came back, they would be put in solitary confinement, as we know. So this is like, it's being halted by Daniel Ellsberg. I mean, he's recognizing Tulsi Gabbard. And she said, when brave whistleblowers come forward to expose wrongdoing within our government, they must have the confidence that they have, and the press who publishes this information will be protected from the government retaliation.
Big time importance right there.
Yeah, people like Edward Snowden and Julian Assange, among others, acted in the public interest to expose information that impacted the American people. They are being persecuted for doing so, and under current law are legally unable to defend themselves in court because they are prohibited from speaking about their intent for disclosing information. All charges against them and extradition efforts should be dropped. We must ensure that whistleblowers charged under the Espionage Act are treated fairly under our judicial system and able to mount a just legal defense.
Yeah, they can't even defend themselves because they're silenced when even talking about their intent and what they're doing. But for a second, can we talk about exactly what they did? Because I think people forget what WikiLeaks did was they provided the truth. They gave us transparency. And for people on the left, the progressives out there more than anything, they gave us all the information on what we thought was happening. WikiLeaks gave us the clear proof that the DNC was rigging the elections against Bernie Sanders, not just in a strategic way, but coming together, but overall, they showed, how they just took this nomination away from this man and they worked together, meanwhile portraying to the public Debbie Wasserman Schultz and all those other people that they're running a fair election and nothing's going on. They also provided, WikiLeaks, war crimes. Okay, that video where we see the helicopter shooting down people. Remember, these bullets are this big, ladies and gentlemen. They're not like little small mini bullets. These bullets are this big that ripped through human flesh, and they killed reporters, people in the press. The truth tellers, the people bringing information to light. That's who they killed. WikiLeaks has provided so much information, and fam, I believe they have a 100% accuracy rate, right? Meaning they never had to retract the story.
Yeah, and
so why aren't we standing up for them? Why isn't the left standing up?
Because they don't think this matters, because Julian Assange had some accusations, because Julian Assange was told that he was, an asshole or whatever they were told. And because the left a lot of the times puts emotion over logic, and that is a very, very big problem that we have. They are manipulated by through emotions by the establishment, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But what you said is absolutely true. And WikiLeaks also it's also wrapped into the Russiagate stuff, which we're going to talk about later, because they used Russiagate, which is the actual conspiracy theory, to really divert attention from the crimes they were actually committing. And the United States government constantly does this all the time. They divert your attention into something else to blame somebody else, so you don't pay attention to what they're doing.
Or they scare you into it too as well.
Right,
they shame you, scare you into it. I mean, I think a lot of the reasons why a lot of people on the left have ignored this is because he went after the Democratic Party. But you know what? And people were like, well, he's working for Putin. Like, no.
Yeah, that
he never. The reason why he didn't go to the embassy, the Russian embassy, and seek extradition to Russia like Edward Snowden is because he exposed Putin before.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He plays no favorites. So this whole mentality that you were fed that Russia was, he's working for Russia now, was just a far-fetched fairy tale.
It was
a
all
fairy
smears
tale.
to discredit him.
And the fact that he went after the Democratic Party, I think, is why a lot of people on the left are upset and ignoring this, because the emotions that come into play.
Exactly. So this is what Daniel Ellsberg said, and it's important that you guys hear it, because he, like I said before, he's making a distinction. If this long overdue revision of the 1917 Espionage Act had been law half a century ago, I myself could have had a fair trial for releasing the Pentagon Papers in 1971. Justice under law unavailable to me and to every other national security whistleblower indicted and prosecuted since then. I applaud, congratulate, and thank Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard for protecting our First Amendment against growing and unprecedented assault and providing a legal defense for unauthorized disclosures in the public interest, the lifeblood of a republic. This is like Daniel Ellsberg. This is huge that he is thanking Tulsi Gabbard for doing this. I have to reiterate, she is the only Democrat that is actually talking about this, which is like crazy to me, because I thought the Democrats were supposed to be left of the Republicans on this, and now you're making neocons and a lot of Republicans look to your, like they're to your left when it comes to these things like protecting the First Amendment. So in essence, the Democrats are going to push some people to the right. And then you care about fascism. You're pushing people towards fascism because people are like, wait a minute now. If Republicans are doing this, I might as well vote Republican. So you're working. And I think the Democrats, this is aside, but I think the Democrats actually are doing this on purpose, because I think this is all a game. I think it's fascist versus non-fascist. I mean, people want to call themselves anti-fascist. Standing for this is actually being anti-fascist.
Yeah. When you suppress speech, when you suppress a free press, that is the definition of fascism right there. And stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? And this is what it is. They don't want people to know the truth. They only want to control. When they have the keys to the kingdom, meaning the elites, and they can control media, they can control the narrative, they can convince people that climate change doesn't exist. They can convince people that Medicare for all is a form of socialism, Nazism, it's bad, that's going to eventually
bankrupt the
country and be like, rot from the inside because it's a social communist program. If they can control the media, they control that statement, they can control that narrative, they control that rhetoric, and then you get nothing. All I'm saying, and this is something that we can do right off the bat, is if we protect our civil liberties, if we have free and fair elections, then we can have all those nice things. But until we get freedom of speech, until our First Amendment rights are protected, until the press is protected, until real whistleblowers. Remember the whistleblowers for the Ukraine thing? They were CIA personnel, and they were trying to say they were whistleblowers, and people.
That's why they were being protected. That's why.
Exactly.
The people aren't being protected are the real whistleblowers.
Exactly. Thank you, fam.
So let's just go over some bullet points of HR 8452. It would create additional protections for the whistleblowers tried for violations of the Espionage Act. It would allow defendants in the Espionage Act cases to speak to their intent in their defense, which is currently not allowed. Believe it or not, they can't even defend themselves. They're not afforded the opportunity to speak towards their intent or motive during their defense, as they could under a normal court case. Add a public interest defense that would permit defendants to raise the defense that their disclosures were in public interest. And again, this bill is also supported by the Pentagon Papers, Daniel Ellsberg.
Yeah. Do you know that When you're talking about you can't even speak up in your own defense, they can't even speak to your lawyers. They got
can't.
Julian Assange
Yep.
in the back of the courtroom in a glass thing, and if he wants to do something, he's got to write it on a Post-it, hand it down below. The guy's going to take it up and walk it up to their lawyer. I mean, this is a kangaroo court if I've ever seen one.
Absolutely.
And they're trying to punish the guy who gave us so much information to what's really going
It's
on in
as
our
bad.
politics today.
It's as bad as the police investigating themselves.
Yeah.
That's literally. That is like literally. Why do you think the police can investigate themselves? Because we allow this shit to happen on a bigger scale, on a macro level. Then there's a micro level. This is all directly connected to the police state, which is controlled by these intelligence agencies. So
we'll look into it, fam.
So, fam, Tulsi not only introduced HR, this bill protecting whistleblowers, but she also introduced House Resolution 1162, calling for all charges to be dropped against Edward Snowden, who is, of course, the man who exposed illegal and unconstitutional acts of abuse within our own government. The resolution also calls for Congress to do more to protect whistleblowers who expose illegal and unconstitutional acts of abuse within our government. She has previously spoken in support of Julian Assange and applauded a ruling in the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, which determined that the warrantless telephone surveillance program that secretly collected the phone records of millions of people violated the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. The NSA program in question was exposed by Edward Snowden, who leaked the details of this to the press. And so we have a list of things she did, but I just want to reiterate that, like, this isn't the first time she's talked about Julian Assange. Meanwhile, we have a bunch of politicians that people love, like Bernie Sanders, AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, all these people that, sure, like AOC the other day was like, yeah, like I just want you guys to have healthcare I have. Okay, what are you doing about it? I'm looking at people's actions, and the problem with a lot of the emotionalness in the left spectrum of of this country is that they look at symbolic platitudes and words over policy and actions. And that is a really big problem that we have. Yeah.
Just a really quick reiteration of what happened when it comes to this over here. And she's saying directly, let's drop these charges against Edward Snowden. There was a lot of scuttlebutt or buzz going on that the NSA was spying on its own citizens and not using the FISA courts and the warrants correctly, where they said they were going to be paying attention to our adversaries, that be it Russia, China, Iran, all those situations. So James Clapper was summoned by Congress, and he lied to Congress and said, no, the NSA is not collecting data on you or me or anybody else.
Literally lied.
Snowden drops all the information, gets the hell out of town. He, with the help of Glenn Greenwald, the Intercept, gets it out there, goes over to Russia, seeks asylum. They got him over there. Putin protects him. And then Clapper just kind of blows it off. Shahid Buttar goes to a hearing and tells Clapper, why are you being held accountable for lying in the courts? They arrest him for going out and calling out these people, whatnot. And what is James Clapper doing today? He's got a multi-million-dollar contract on MSNBC where he lied to the public. He lied to you about spying on us. Edward Snowden showed they were spying on us, American citizens, 4 times as much as they were spying on China and Russia and Iran put together. They're looking at us, ladies and gentlemen. They're trying to control us. This is when we talk about our civil liberties and our privacy and our individual freedoms. This is what they're doing. And by doing so, they got a hand on everything, fam. They know everything that's going on at all times. They can make mastermind plans, the deep state, the CIA, intelligence, the elites, whoever's running things. They know. If they got your playbook, they know what you're going to do. They can defeat you electorally. They can defeat you in the streets. They can go out and flame you, do whatever they want, because they have all the information right there for them. And like I said, nobody paid a price. In fact, they got cushy jobs on mainstream media.
And those people with these cushy jobs are precisely the ones ignoring the Julian Assange trial, absolutely not even mentioning it. Sometimes if they do mention it, Daniel Ellsberg also talks about this. They mention him, but they don't mention anything regarding Edward Snowden or Julian Assange unless it's connected to Russiagate, which is like, pretty much you might as well not mention it because you're doing a disservice.
And what these guys did was something really, it's heroic, and it takes a lot of guts, I'm talking about bravery deep down inside to go out there and expose the national security, state. I mean, this is big, and if we don't get back on this, we don't nip this in the butt, they're going to kill the messenger every single time. So just be ready to be fed what they want you to hear, not the truth, not what's going out there.
And so I just want to point out a couple things, because Pasta voted for Tulsi. I voted for Bernie. I like Tulsi. I have a lot of disagreements with her too. This isn't about Tulsi Gabbard as much as it is about I'm giving her huge credit because she's the only one talking about this, and she's the only Democrat. And also, we're going to talk about the smears against her too, and how that's being twisted. But I do have to reiterate that she has been fighting against U.S. intelligence agencies and actions that threaten the privacy of American citizens. She has drawn from her military service and constitutional protections, and she's admonished the National Security Administration, the NSA, for its sweeping collection of personal data, supported legislation to curtail it, and voiced support for court decisions aiming to rein in the executive overreach. She also has an A-plus legislative scorecard rating from the Restore the Fourth and Fight for the Future. Yeah. So those are things about Tulsi Gabbard. But let's go a little bit deeper, fam. If you want to check some super chats really quickly,
do we have somebody
or just check some people.
Oh, I got one over here. Thank you for the super chat contribution, Otis B. It's always appreciated on the couch. Sending you a shout out for the great work you do, Otis B. Sending a shout out to you, whatnot. And yes, fam. As we get into, did I miss another one, Johnny? Or all right. And as we get into this, I do remember the whole Joe Rogan interview. By the way, guys, there's only 11 people over on Rokfin. Don't get me in trouble over here. We need 20. You know, fam wants 20. So go over to the Rokfin, Rokfin. Sign up and go for it. Fam, I do remember the interview with Joe Biden,
Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan.
The better Joe.
Yeah,
the
better Joe. And this was early. You know what I'm saying? And then we had a certain reporter going around asking people, where do you stand on Assange? I mean, I got thrown out of a building for trying to get in Pete Buttigieg's space and ask him about Assange. They just grabbed me and threw me out of the way.
That's because Pete Buttigieg is a CIA little minion. Yeah, that's a good one, Weasel. Yeah,
so he is a weasel, but I mean, I remember it, and you know, it took a lot of guts, it took a lot of heart, and this is one area where our boy, I think he missed the bill on this one. So
1175. This is with in coalition with Thomas Massie. She introduced this bipartisan resolution defending the press, the free press, and calling for all charges specifically against Julian Assange to be dropped. I haven't seen anybody else be this specific regarding Julian Assange. Like, no, you have to drop all of the charges. So,
that's it right there. Put it up right there.
Awesome. So let's just I'm just gonna highlight a couple things. Her and Massie is introduced this to defend the freedom of the press, noting that news gathering activities and news organizations' ability to acquire and publish information are protected under the First Amendment. This calls for the United States to drop all charges and efforts to extradite Julian Assange. She says, quote, "The freedom of the press is a vital function of a free democracy in which the government is accountable to the people. Julian Assange published information that exposed lies and abuses of power at the highest levels of our government. His indictment under the Espionage Act sends a chilling message to every member of the media and all Americans." U.S. government prosecutors now claim that any journalist or news organization that publishes classified material is liable to prosecution under the Espionage Act, which would have led to the indictment of the Washington Post for the publication of the Pentagon Papers. The federal government's prosecution of Julian Assange sets a dangerous precedent. All extradition efforts and charges under the Espionage Act against Julian Assange must be dropped now. And Massie also said, at a time when government officials claim the right to perform warrantless surveillance upon all American citizens, there is an urgent need to zealously guard freedom of the press and to demand government transparency and accountability. The ongoing attempts to prosecute Julian Assange threaten our First Amendment rights and should be opposed by all who wish to safeguard our constitutional rights now and in the years to come. I join my colleague, Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, in calling for an immediate and end to all charges against Mr. Assange. So there we go.
She got two bills right there. One going directly in 1175, going after and saying drop the charges against Julian Assange. Yep. The other one saying drop the charges against Edward Snowden. And even furthermore, fam, a bill that says let's redo and make sure that this Espionage Act can't put anybody else in hot water, and redefine that the way it is, because it's so broad and so vague that the U.S. government can take it and throw anybody they want behind bars. And so she's gotten boom, boom, boom here, fam.
And let's just highlight, Tulsi Gabbard was the only person that was running for president that largely, besides maybe Marianne Williamson, went on independent media. I mean, more than anybody else, she went on independent media. She would do interviews with everybody of any, like, whether you were right, independent, libertarian, left, ultra left. She came here and did an interview with us, whereas the Bernie Sanders campaign and Bernie Sanders did not do like the interviews with independent media as much as he should have at all. And she understands freedom of the press and what that means to people who are telling the truth, because she has been attacked by the establishment press and smeared by the establishment press. So I think also this is very consistent for somebody like that, who has constantly been undermined and smeared by the fake press, by the PR machine, by the it's the propaganda machine, like the media that used to serve the public, the fourth estate that should have been the ones to look over the police state, the intelligence communities, the government. That's the point of the press. The point of the press isn't to pretty much regurgitate what they want you to say. It's actually to question it and make sure they're doing their job. That's the point of the press. That's not bias. That's literally the point. You're supposed to be the watchdog of these institutions of power.
Absolutely. And they've become the lapdog of the institutions of power. And we'll talk about that more as we talk about this Russiagate stuff that was recently been declassified by head of the security state, talking about, we'll get to that and stuff, but you can see what's going on. You know what I'm saying? They're not performing their duties, and that's what we have. You know what I'm saying? That's why they've all turned their back on the situation. And I think because Edward Snowden and Julian Assange has embarrassed them, therefore they're still kind of playing that same kind of rhetoric.
Right.
Hypocrisy says, did you watch Vosh's video on Tulsi and Veritas? Fam, did you happen to catch it? We'll get some popcorn out today and we'll watch it. No.
Anytime somebody brings up that guy, my blood just starts to boil, because he is a disservice to commentating. If you're going to commentate from a place of truth. Don't commentate from a place of just like nothingness. Like, he is a disservice. I do not watch him, because when I try to watch him, he's just lying out of his mouth the whole time. And we're going to address we've already addressed it. We literally did like debunk the whole thing, but we'll address it again, because I'm just sick and tired of hearing this guy's name brought up as if he's somebody to go to, when he's not a journalist. He's just a guy that literally shit talks online for reactions. He wants that reaction. He wants that, like, that's what he does.
Well, he's also one of those people on the left that kind of I don't want to say
an anarcho-Bidenist. Yeah.
But he kind of justifies the feeling that some of these people have on the left when they want to hate a Tulsi.
Right.
They go to TYT, they go to Vosh because they're going to tell them some bullshit freaking statement on why it's okay to be against this person. To really honestly believe that since Tulsi quoted Project Veritas for some of the work she did, that she's being racist against Ilhan Omar. I mean, that's just absurd. Glory Jones says, think mirror.
Think mirror. That's a QAnon reference.
I know. Jennifer Clark, thank you for the Super Chat contribution. Thank you for your service to all the stifled voices in the world. Stifled voices in the world. Isn't that stifled?
No,
stifled.
It's stifled, fam.
Sorry, my bad. Voices in TBE world.
Okay,
so what do we got over here?
Okay, we're good on that. So
your boy Matt Gates from Florida here.
I pointed these three bills out separately so we know exactly like what they're saying. So 1162 is the one with Matt Gaetz, who, it's another bipartisan resolution calling for charges against Edward Snowden to be dropped. So we kind of mentioned it before. Like Pasta said, it was the whistleblowers in general and reining in the Espionage Act. Then it was drop all the charges against Julian Assange. And this one is drop all the charges against Edward Snowden. Yeah. And so this week they introduced that. And she said, we continue to see attacks on the American civil liberties and aggressive surveillance policies within our own government, trading on the fears of the American people. This occurred both under the Democratic and Republican administrations, while a few brave whistleblowers came forward to lift the curtain on the constitutional threats we faced. Edward Snowden has been persecuted for bravely exposing massive illegal government surveillance on all Americans, a finding backed by the U.S. courts as recently as last month. She's citing what what was done before.
The NSA kind of came forward and they said it was illegal what they did. That's what they said. Sorry, fam, go ahead.
Meanwhile, from former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper lied to Congress, saying this program did not exist and suffered no consequences whatsoever. All charges against Edward Snowden should be dropped. We need to protect whistleblowers, not the powerful elite. Yeah. So again, one of my criticisms on Tulsi was she didn't really go after the capitalists enough and stuff. Like she's not a socialist. She never claimed to be. But this is her saying we're going to go after the powerful elite and government. When she went after Hillary Clinton, she was saying, "Oh, we're going to go after the queen of the warmongers." She is going after these people.
Did you have to like that tweet again, by the way?
Oh yeah, I constantly
Keeps
have to
on
like
taking
it.
and scrubbing my likes on that tweet.
Constantly
Yeah.
have to like it.
And Pasta, didn't Shahid Buttar get arrested?
He
for,
did. This is what we talked about. He went there. He went to a hearing, and he started saying, "Why aren't you being held accountable for lying to, you know, if anybody lied to the American people and lied to Congress, they'd be going to jail right now. Why did you get it?" They arrested his ass, and this is one of the reasons I've always liked Shahid, is because he understood, you know, civil liberties and the point of protecting a free press. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, kudos, should I say?
Kudos.
Kudos. I can't even speak today.
It's that Brooklyn tongue.
By the way, Gates kind of over here, whatnot. This guy has kind of labeled himself somewhat as a populist right and stuff, and he's been awful on certain things. And I've never liked his rhetoric and sometimes the way he is when it comes to immigration. But when it comes to, like, you know, the security state, when it comes to ending some of the wars, Gates has ponied up and put himself over there and say, "Hey, no, we got to get out of Afghanistan. We got to do this stuff." Plus, he went head to head with the, you know, everybody on the whole Russiagate thing when they was going back and forth, and Gates was under the spotlight when he was trying to say this Russiagating shit is bullshit. So,
and I have a feeling like if I were in Congress, I would actually because in my experience, when I've talked to people who are Republicans, who are like people that are, you know, that aren't outright like full on Nazi theocrats, that are like, okay, you can agree on some things. I feel like if I were in Congress, I would want to make some sort of like, okay, like, I don't agree with you on any of this, but can we at least do this? Isn't that the point of like, to get things passed, like, or to get support, like, and I think Tulsi is that kind of person that will talk to people. I mean, when I was bartending, I would talk to Republicans, and then they would listen to what I had to say. They'd be like, "Okay, I agree with you. Yeah. It's how you frame things. It's how you talk to people. It's how you say these things." And I think Tulsi Gabbard gets a lot of flack for that, but it's actually something that should be looked as a good thing, because as long as you don't compromise, as long as she's not like, well, you know, I'm going to support you know, the what is it, like the Proud Boys, which she has never done. She has never supported any of these people. And so I just think it's interesting that people just kind of want to stay in their corners. How the hell are you going to find a solution? And she's always been consistent on that. I mean, I have my limits to who like I can talk to and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's like people just want to like vilify her for like trying to get shit done.
And it's really a shame too, because a lot of people say that politics is about mitigating damage. No, it's about mitigating damage if you don't want to reach compromisation with the other side. She's always looking for some form of compromisation. Like, in other words, we're going to talk about Senator Wyden. He can Russiagate like a son of a bitch, and some of the things he votes for is terrible. But when it comes to the areas of national security, maybe he's going to be a little bit more on the side. Same with Getz. Same with Paul. Same with Massey. And that's what real politics is about, is getting stuff done on a compromisation level where you can get and achieve certain things. Not this whole cancel culture, this push these people out, that these people are evil, we don't want to talk to them, they're racist, they're Nazis, we can't deal with them, and then therefore nothing gets done. And that's all you're doing, is mitigating damage and trying to say justify voting for a person like Joe Biden because you're just trying to salvage what you can. It's just,
and you
it's
should
wrong.
work
What
with
she was doing is right.
On the left too, like you should. Well, on the center, you should work with neoliberals if they agree on something like that you agree with. I'm not saying you don't work with them either.
What can we agree with neoliberals on? I'm trying to think.
Maybe like a marijuana law or something. Maybe one of them is like, but I don't know.
Joe Biden didn't even put it on the platform.
It's harder to find that. But I'm saying if there were, it's like if somebody like Elizabeth Warren was actually pushing something good, then yeah, like you should work with them too. Like it's not a one-sided thing. It should be, you know, like whatever. But that's where we're in, because we have a two-party system that is basically
But don't
an
you
oligarchy.
also feel that the left, though, the establishment left is more about the cancer culture than the establishment right? I think the establishment right still just thinks that they're right in their ideology, and I think they're wrong about a lot of things, the way they handle some things, especially when it comes to, you know, climate change, when it comes to immigration and whatnot. They don't connect the dots, you know what I'm saying? I think sometimes, like, that's the one argument I can't stand having with the right, is like, listen, guys, we're putting toxins in the air. It's gotta be bad, no? I mean, if you're for individual responsibility, don't you believe on that? But there are other areas where we can find certain people on the right who are kind of like anti-war when it comes to these libertarian-minded people.
The problem with the left is, you're right, that they are more about cancel culture, but
well, at least the leadership,
both,
right?
The leadership,
Yeah.
but like when I went to this protest, you know, BLM versus the Proud Boys, there was a few people that were screaming at each other, but then there were people like Lori Jones who were trying to talk about certain things. So there's people on both sides that are able to communicate, but there's always going to be people that just scream at each other and don't want to participate. They're just going to say, why do you know, you hate us, like I hate you,
but
like
that guy
Joe
was
Biden,
asking,
blah blah blah.
right? That guy was like, why do you hate us? Why did you hate us? I was looking for one of them, instead of them saying fuck you, to go and say, I'm going to tell you why I hate us.
Well, she did. That's
yeah. I didn't catch a lot of it
Yeah,
and
yeah,
stuff
yeah.
like that. But the guy was like, why do you hate us? Why do you hate us? Why do you hate us? And I was looking for that conversation. So, well, it's not that we hate you. We just strongly dislike your ideology and your politics because we feel you're anti-immigrant. Like, you're not realizing that these people, you're not having a compassionate heart that are coming here for a certain reason, searching for a better life. But it's not that they're evil or they're racist. It's that they always have this comparison on the right, it seems, a lot of them, that if you give to an immigrant or a person of color or a minority or something, you're taking away from a veteran or somebody who's an American. It's more about an exceptionalism, which is in itself, I guess, racism,
I think some people are I think some people are racist or just minimize everybody else's problems, but it does have a lot to do with the economic concern of like the blame that's been put on it. That's what Trump did. I mean, he just put the blame on minorities and
they're taking away your programs
issues
from a
when
veteran.
it was the corporations and it was, he can't say that because he was a businessman and he's not going to go after the corporations. And that was like the whole thing that Glory, when she was talking to this person, she was like, well, I don't understand. Like, you believe in the like, he was like, yeah, we need to get rid of the military industrial complex and blah, 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 and protect our freedoms. And she's like, yeah, I totally agree. But Donald Trump isn't doing that. Like, he's literally a tool of the establishment. He's literally not doing what he was supposed to do. He's the one that could drop the charges on Julian Assange right now, and he's not doing that.
For handing you the election, too, as
so
well.
There you go. So there's no point in, like, we don't like Biden either, but we don't but Trump is I mean, they're both corrupt. Like, what are you doing defending these politicians? That's why I was saying, like, these people have more in common with each other if they would just sit and talk than they do with these politicians that they're so fervently defending. And I didn't see that many people defend Joe Biden. In fact, in that protest, people were joining in and saying, fuck Biden, fuck Trump. Like, they were all saying that. And that's the point. Stop defending these politicians and look to what you guys can resolve together.
Yeah, and especially what we talked about the other day about, like, okay, what is it, his rhetoric or his policy? To me, it's the policy is going to put the label on the person. I'm going to judge a person based on their policy. And Donald Trump's policy in South and Central and Latin America, wherever you want to call it nowadays, that's where it was a very racist policy, where it continued on the Obama policy against Venezuela, where it allowed stuff to happen in Bolivia, where it's continuing the policies of Salvador. And that leads to your biggest, what's the word I'm looking at? The biggest plan you wanted to put forth was the wall, right? Okay.
Yeah.
That's the big thing where a lot of people say, well, that's racist. That's the biggest plan. He's protecting Americans. Listen, you don't even have to build a wall if you stop with those racist policies in South and Central and Latin America. So to me, his biggest plan, his biggest, what he wanted to do, he shot that himself by continuing on the same policies of the parties before him in South and Central and Latin America. So.
And I just wanted to read this House Resolution 1162 because it is actually really well written and it's not too long. So, Pasta, we can both read it.
Go ahead.
Whereas during a Senate hearing, if you go to the link, Johnny, it's the official website. It should be right. Yeah, this one. If you just go down, scroll down.
No,
1162.
1162.
If you just scroll down where it's
right
under
above the
1162.
purple?
Yeah. There. Yeah. No, go down. There you go. And that's the second link. Reading all of it right where it says there. Okay. Whereas during a Senate hearing on March 12, 2013, James Clapper, then Director of National Intelligence, was questioned by Senator Ron Wyden and was asked whether the National Security Agency collected any type of data on all millions or hundreds of millions of Americans, to which Clapper replied, quote, "No, sir," and added, quote, "not wittingly," unquote, a response he later admitted was, quote, "clearly erroneous," end quote. Whereas in June 2013, Edward Snowden disclosed to a selective group of journalists National Security Agency documents exposing that bulk collection of American telephone records from telecommunications providers by the intelligence community was occurring. Whereas on June 21st, 2013, the Department of Justice unsealed charges against Edward Snowden for violating Actions 793D and 798A3 of the Espionage Act and theft of government property under Section 641 of Title 18 United States Code. Whereas on January 23rd, 2014, the Privacy and Civil Liberties Oversight Board's report on the National Security Agency's telephone records program found, quote, no instance in which the program directly contributed to the discovery of a previously unknown terrorist plot or the disruption of a terrorist attack, end quote. And that the program significantly threatened and violated the constitutional rights of the American people. Whereas on May 7th, 2015, the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit ruled that Section 215 of the Patriot Act did not authorize the bulk collection of telephone records, and therefore such collection was unlawful. Whereas on September 2nd, 2020, the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit ruled the National Security Agency's telephone records bulk collections program illegal and possibly unconstitutional under the Fourth Amendment. Whereas the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit found that the telephone records bulk collection program did not play a pivotal role in any terrorism investigations. Whereas those involved in the collection of Americans' telephone records have yet to be held accountable for their illegal actions, further increasing the danger of continued government overreach and abuse of civil liberties. And whereas the United States government must protect whistleblowers who expose illegal and unconstitutional acts of abuse within our government, now therefore be it resolved that it is the sense of the House of Representatives that 1. The National Security Agency's bulk collection telephone records program was illegal and unconstitutional. 2. Edward Snowden's disclosure of the program to journalists was in the public interest. And 3. The federal government should drop all charges against Edward Snowden. And that was the other ones aren't necessarily ready. Like they haven't been written out, so that's why I'm not reading them. But that one was really well written and legislation. It was just beautifully written, and they specifically point out, bam, 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 this is why. And honestly, it's unlikely that they're going to pass this because we have a bunch of freaking fascists in office.
It's unlikely it won't even get to the floor.
We got to see who from the squad votes on this, because this is really important.
Where's somebody from the squad saying something?
They have not said anything
right now,
yet.
if you're a true progressive or a leftist libertarian or whatever you want to call yourself, you would call a press conference on this right now and start talking about this.
Absolutely.
This is legislation we need to get passed. We need to protect freedom of speech. We need to protect freedom of the press. This is something which should not be joked around about. You know what I keep on thinking about, Johnny, is Rick and Morty. When the plane goes into the building, remember, goes, they're going to use it to take away our freedoms. Well, guess who co-authored that Patriot Act over there? You know what I'm saying? Who wrote the blueprint for it? Joe effing Biden.
Yep.
And the left is behind on the right when it comes to freedom, protection of our freedom of speech. And the one person who's the champion of it, they've been pretty much pushing her out the door. They don't want her on their squad, on their team. And it really is a shame. Because this opened the door for them doing what they wanted to do.
Yep.
You know, it's important. And you got another people we're going to get into it. I don't want to jump the gun. But, you know, they're for censorship. They're for censorship, and it's disgusting. Todd Southern, thank you for providing the context so that the light can be shined on the truth. Can shine on the truth.
Yeah, no, you guys make a great point when saying that, you know, there should be press conferences being held right now.
Right now.
There should be. Why are they not saying anything? The squad, AOC, Ilhan Omar.
Because it takes a lot of balls.
This is crazy.
Which Tulsi has. She has balls of steel.
They're both in the Dem Party.
Yeah, to go after these people. I mean, you can go out. You can talk about, you know, Green New Deal, Medicare for all, blah blah blah. But when you attack the security state, that's when you know, like, who
You're
has
the real
balls.
deal.
Yeah, and like Bernie used to do that. So
I
I don't know what's happened or who's been threatened or what's the situation is, but trust me, this is this is so important. And like, not only press conferences, but every single person right now watching and every single person in general. And I know we're gonna have our Assange Friends Slow News Day on tomorrow, but we like, it's so important that we amp up this situation, these bills, and we call all these people, because like nobody else is talking about this. Like, the mainstream media is not talking about this. They're like gonna be like, well, Tulsi Gabbard, blah, blah, blah. She's like, you know, getting cozy with right wingers. That's all they're talking about.
That's
like,
really
that's
right wingers like Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah.
I mean,
Anna.
they're really calling her the right now in a week where she's produced these bills coming out which directly go after people who are real heroes, real whistleblowers like Edward Snowden and Julian Assange. That have provided so much transparency
and
to the public.
To the press.
Yeah.
As members of the press, a lot of these people criticizing her, they should be freaking like thanking her. Yeah. Like, hello. You think you're protected, but just if you because they don't publish the truth. But those of us who publish the truth, this is so important. This is so important.
I think we have a rundown of some stuff you have right over here listed and some of the stuff she's done.
I'm just going to list some of these things real quick. Tulsi Gabbard, this is the list of things she has done. This isn't anything new.
I'll go from the next one for you.
So
the first one?
she talked about, we talked about this, the court ruling against the illegal NSA surveillance on civil liberties victory. She talked about the watchdog group's NSA reform recommendations back in, I think that was 2013. Well, the second one.
Yeah.
2013, right here.
The other one is the NSA funding program infringes on the civil liberties and freedom our troops have fought and died for.
Yeah.
The very liberties and freedoms our troops have fought and died for. That was 2013 too as well. This is the other one right here.
And she also commended the U.S. Second Circuit Court of Appeals ruling that the NSA's bulk phone surveillance program was illegal. That was in 2015. And she voted against the effort to undermine net neutrality. This is also important. Again, this falls into the civil liberties category.
Where's Ron?
But she's reiterating that too with the unplug internet kill switch that she and Massey and Paul Wyden and Peters introduced to protect civil liberties.
Gary Peters getting in on it.
She basically, this is to unplug the internet. It's called the Unplug the Internet Kill Switch Prevention Act, which would prevent the president from using emergency powers to cut off Americans' access to the internet and undermine the Americans' constitutional protections. And this bipartisan bicameral bill was introduced in the Senate by Senator Rand Paul, Ron Wyden, and Gary Peters. And she said, quote, "The oath that I took as a soldier and as a member of Congress was to support and defend our Constitution. The freedoms enshrined in our Constitution cannot be taken for granted. Our legislation would fix a World War II era law that gives the president nearly unchallenged authority to restrict access to the internet, conduct email surveillance, control computer systems and cell phones. No president should have the power to ignore our freedoms guaranteed by the Constitution and violate our civil liberties and privacy by declaring a national emergency." And Massey said, "When governments around the world turn off the internet access, they do significant harm to the national economies and of their citizens and their citizens' civil rights. This bipartisan bill will ensure that no future American president can unilaterally trip an internet kill switch. Americans do not have to accept the promise that one person can deprive them of their First Amendment rights by flipping a switch."
There's a couple leaders of states that kind of done this, and they got, the whole thing with Modi when he did this thing when it came to Kashmir, he got kind of blamed for this. They did it in I think in Bolivia, the president over there did it. When it's been done, the kill switch has been thrown on several times. Therefore, you can keep the people just kind of suppressed and in the dark and not know what's going on. You don't let them coordinate with each other so that they can mount a defense or a protest, whatnot. It is definitely against everything we stand for when it comes to our civil liberties.
And just so you guys can see it, that's the actual bill. It's this one is HR 8336 to repeal certain war powers of the president under the Communications Act of 1934. This is also another bill she introduced from 2019 to 2020, and it's not ready yet, but she's, again, this is another umbrella of the civil liberties to kind of derail the president's power. And so this is like, these are things that are actual policy legislations. Like, it's not just her sitting there and talking and trying to one up Republicans. It's not just her sitting and talking and just, kind of trying to get points on Twitter for things. She's literally putting out legislation. And when, as someone that looks at policy, I'm sorry, she's like pushing policy after policy after policy after policy after policy. I don't have to agree with her on every single thing to be honest and be like, wow, she's the only one that's actually going after these protections that will ensure that we get, the ability to tell people, hey, Joe Biden's a liar. Hey, Obama's a liar. Hey, they're lying to you. Russiagate is fake. She's pushing policies that allow us to have the internet, to do that, to have the freedom of the internet, to not have the president, somebody like Donald Trump or somebody like Obama or Joe Biden or whoever, to have all this power. She's actually pushing legislation to empower people and to protect people who are speaking out and holding the government accountable. So to me, like, isn't that equally as important as everything else, if not more important than what a lot of these other people are doing? Like, it like, especially right now when we're in a situation where, Bernie and the entire squad, the progressive wing, are pushing Joe Biden and campaigning. He's risking his literal life campaigning for Joe Biden. like instead of doing this or like joining in on this, I would hope the senator would join her on this, and we'll see what happens. I don't think we don't know.
It's kind of sad right now, but at least you know where you stand when it comes to these things, because these are the foundations of which our democracy is built upon, and we need these things in place. And we've been further moving away from actual having freedom of speech, freedom of a press. We've been seeing more people like Edward Snowden and Assange being jailed for just truth-telling and giving us all this information. We have to put an end to it. And I don't know if you know this, fam. I'm a civil liberties guy, right? So if I have a candidate out there that protects our civil liberties and then protects our elections, I really got something. What do you got over here?
So recently, Tulsi Gabbard and Rodney Davis introduced a bill to ban vote harvesting and protect mail-in ballots from third-party predators. She said, the strength of our democracy lies in the integrity of our elections, whether in the midst of a pandemic where mail-in voting is likely to be drastically increased, or in the normal election. No one should get in between a voter and the ballot box. While some states have prohibited vote harvesting, many states lack any regulations that would stop third parties from fraudulently collecting and mishandling ballots, as has occurred in recent elections. Our bipartisan bill incentivizes states to take action and prevent any political parties or any third party interest group from interfering with our sacred right to vote. Okay, so
somebody can just show up at the registrar's office with about 1,000 ballots and say, I collected these, I helped some old people out, I went to some nursing homes, I went to some Democratic clubs, so here's all these ballots, take them in there. And they go, okay, here you go, we'll take them on in. This is the chain of custody, which we talk about all the time. Yeah. We have talked before about, a mail-in ballot. Just thinking about a mail-in ballot alone. And once again, I'm not against mail-in ballots, but only in certain situations. If it's an elder person, whatnot, but it has to be done with tracking. We need to know exactly where the ballot went and where it goes back to. But these ballots aren't even going back to the registrar or their office where they're doing the counting. They're going to P.O. boxes, and they have more room for ballots harvesting where they can take these things and throw them away or produce ones they want. It's just too many hands are touching these ballots, and this right here protects the chain of custody, something we are really just we're very passionate about when it comes to the chain of custody. We talk about it all the time. Remember, John, we were talking about the chain of custody from which they store the machines on. We're looking at how many hands are touching these people. Well, who's going to be in there with the machines, the chain of custody? Is that not under supervision or under public eyes and stuff? Because then somebody can go in there and change the programming, or somebody could do something to these things. The chain of custody is one of the most important things when it comes to our elections. This strengthens the chain of custodies, and it takes away a big mechanism which allows for a lot of cheating. And the fact that she's been yelled at about this thing, and I think she's been yelled at or been mocked or been
smeared.
Chastised.
It's the Clinton machine.
It is. But I think a lot of neo-progressives, and sorry to point it out, I think they're really upset that she's one-upping Bernie when it comes to our elections.
They're taking the bait because if AOC or the Squad or Bernie would have introduced these bills, they'd be all over it.
Yeah, they'd be hailing them.
Johnny said that.
Johnny on fire. No, they would. They would.
I love you, Johnny.
And so I just want to reiterate, though, even though I don't think this is the most important thing regarding our elections, I think the machines and the whole system needs to be redone. I don't want to deprive people of their ability to vote by mail, but we don't have a system right now that is secure. I would love for everybody to be able to vote online or by mail if we had a secure system, but we don't have a system of any oversight regarding our elections. So while I think this is good, I think she's right that there can be a lot of fraud. I've seen it in local elections here with the Democratic establishment ballot harvesting against progressives and rigging it that way. We have seen it here for a long time before this was even brought up by Project Veritas, and that's my point. She talked about the Securing Our Elections Act 3 years ago in 2017. She introduced it twice, I believe, or
it's the only one to talk about open source.
It's the only one that talked about open source, so it wasn't just that. And so when people are talking about her highlighting smears against Ilhan Omar, it's literally bullshit. Like, she literally didn't do that. All she did was say Project Veritas video shows blah 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 blah, and in that video it does show that. Like, I don't like Project Veritas. I don't trust them as a source, and I think it was maybe politically, not the best interest to say that, but all she did was say this video, this thing. Okay,
it just provides proof, and we saw it. The guy sitting in there with hundreds and hundreds of ballots in front of him.
She didn't say, "I believe that Ilhan Omar's race was fraudulent." She didn't say anything about Ilhan Omar. She didn't say anything about any particular party. She even talked about North Carolina, which was the Republicans doing it. So this isn't just like this is like, you have to take your emotions of Project Veritas out of this, because Project Veritas is in a way co-opting. I feel like these organizations like QAnon, Project Veritas are all, I feel like they're psyops sometimes because they turn people against, they have some truths in them, and then the left dismisses real things like child sex trafficking, like voter fraud, election fraud, and all these things that are real because the right says it. So in a way, I think this is all manufactured to get people to like literally not pay attention to those things, and it works because the minute Project Veritas says something, now you can't even touch it. And it's not right because we have been talking about the election fraud.
We don't need
since
Project
2016.
Veritas to tell us about
That the Democrats cheat, that the Republicans cheat. This has been going on forever. We've been talking about it way before Project Veritas. So has she. And so when people like now, like their go to like little comment is like, oh, but Project Veritas, it's really stupid because you don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Exactly.
This has nothing to do with Project Veritas. Nobody is propping them up. This is about the fact that they took an issue that's already been an issue. Okay, well, so they took the issue. That doesn't mean that this issue hasn't been something we've been addressing or she hasn't been addressing for a very long time.
Yeah.
And I'm just so sick of this.
We don't
shit.
need Project Veritas to tell us that our elections are rigged. You know,
No.
You know who told us? The Democratic lawyers in the court case with Jared Beck said they can go in the back room full with cigar smoke, pick whoever they want, and nothing has changed since then. In fact, things have gotten worse, and we don't have WikiLeaks there to show us once again how they are cheating, and the fact that people haven't dove into these elections, right, and really come up with some serious solutions. Like I see a lot of people on there, you know, a lot of the activists I know, like, well, request a mail-in ballot, then take it, fill it out, and then drop it in at the polling place. You don't have to wait in these long lines, and you can just get your vote counted right away. Well, you're not talking about the systemic issues, and you're not even saying to yourself, hold on a second, how come in L.A. we have long lines? Aren't we supposed to be the Mecca? Aren't we supposed to lead in progressive politics? Are you telling me we can't run quick, clean, fast, and effective elections that are transparent? You're just, once again, folding in and succumbing to the Democrats giving you shit and then running with it and trying to find Band-Aid solutions around their systemic issues.
Right.
Well, we gotta ask why.
Yeah.
You know, why are people doing that? It's because of the veil of ignorance, the wall of ignorance. You know,
it is.
People don't want to believe that there's no democracy here.
And there's no democracy.
States.
There's no democracy in our elections. Zero. Absolutely none.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's bipartisan. It's a bipartisan practice.
Bipartisan cheating.
Yeah. I mean, the Republicans, we know what they do. They remove people from the voter list. You know, and sometimes they're saying, well, we have to update these lists. We got to make sure they're okay. We have to cross-check them. That's fine. Do that. But you can't get away from the fact that you remove people from those lists with that cross-reference list and what you did in Florida, which was racist as can be.
And voter suppression as well, tactics that they use.
And then you have your own machines you cheat on when you have your friendly contractors. But the point is, the Democrats do it too. Yeah. And the Democrats do it more of a political way. You know, they have political enemies. They go out there and they think, how do I stop progressives from taking over the party?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And like I said, right now, Donald Trump has a big dilemma right now because in those areas where a lot of Republicans cheat, he takes away a lot of black voters or people of color voters and stuff like that. Donald Trump wants to get more people of color voters than anybody else, just to prove to everybody on the left that, you know, more people of color are with him, more Latinos
and more Latinos are with him than before. They are.
So he's caught in a dilemma right now. Yeah. But to say that the mail-in process doesn't have a plethora of issues, and when Jimmy Carter tells you that, maybe you should believe it. It has systemic problems we have to take on and we have to figure out. We know, we've looked at these contracts, we see what they can do. Back in the days, they would call these mail-in ballots the secret ballots because you don't know where they're coming from. There is no tracking, there is no security, and you can load the ballot box. There's no oversight.
No transparency. So this isn't about just mail-ins. Like, again, like this is about the whole system. And she has been the only one to even attempt to address. None of these people supported her legislations. Yeah. Think about that. Yeah. If we, like now they want to pretend like they care about elections. What about caring about the election process when the Democrats were cheating and rigging this against Bernie Sanders? What about caring that, no, now all of a sudden they care about election and they want every vote to count? No, you don't. You just do it. Like, you're just playing politics against Donald Trump.
Greg
That's all
Palast
this is
said
about.
that when he was on our team, was talking to Max Kaiser, he said, it's funny. He goes, well, don't the Democrats kind of steal and stuff like that? He goes, they suppress the exact vote and voter in the primaries that they do in that the Republicans do in the general. So how can Donald Trump steal the elections if the Democrats already stole it from Bernie Sanders twice?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't get that. I don't get that, but you got to sell stuff and you got to point those things out. And you know their tactics, and it's a very vague, accusation. Yeah. They're removing people from the voter rolls like they've done it, nefariously before. They've done it in a sinister way.
Estrada as well.
But the Democrats have done the same thing.
Right. That's what I'm saying. The Democrats, the establishment Democrats, remove people from the voter rolls
all the time. We saw this
for Maria Estrada's
push people into
State Assembly.
provisionals.
Yeah, all the
long-ass
provisionals.
fucking lines.
The
then you got your
provisionals
mail-in.
Are an attack against here in California. The provisional ballots were an attack on the working class, on the Latino population, and the black and minority populations, because we saw it that the provisionals weren't given out in mass amounts in like nicer looking polling centers in nicer neighborhoods. No, the East LA neighborhoods, the South LA. That's where you got all the provisional ballots. We saw the names.
Yeah.
They were all like not like names of like, you know, they were Latino names. Like
I wish I could have took a picture of this stuff, because I looked at one and I kind of moved it over there, and I looked at a bunch of provisionals, and it was Bernie. They took away those votes.
They didn't let us take a picture, but that's what we saw.
Well, I mean, it's like literally you can see that in there and stuff, and the whole process of on trying to further like validate these ballots was ridiculous. Sorry, go ahead, Johnny.
But Bernie won California.
He did win California, but he didn't win by like the way he should have won. And it's once again, here's the thing: if people's like, oh, if I get my ballot and I send it by the mail, they alert me when I get it. But you're not understanding that whoever holds the contract for that state, you got to look at the Secretary of the State or whoever's running these elections. They can stuff the ballot box like they did, I believe.
Or they can leave them completely not counted.
Yeah,
like
you leave some out for Bernie, and then you stuff a bunch for Biden. You can do that how? By your mail-ins. That's how you can do it, and you can get away with it, and therefore you don't get caught. Because here's the whole thing. We were talking about this, and a lot of people said this. Joe Biden's polling at 8%. He's polling at 8%. You need to get 15% to get viability. Well, he got 26% somehow. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, I feel like people were voting for either Kamala or Pete Buttigieg, especially out here, you know? But then they got like no votes. Like it doesn't make any sense because they all dropped out like literally like the day or 2 days before Super Tuesday. You know what I'm saying?
And when I was, and this is what I tell people, when I was knocking on doors for Bernie Sanders, I encountered a few Warren supporters. I encountered like maybe one Buttigieg, but I never encountered a single Biden supporter. There was a couple of Harris, maybe one or two, but the vast majority of them, especially in the Latino neighborhoods, were all Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
And like it wasn't just the kids, it was a lot of people. And then the Latino community got the Bernie Sanders vote, both the elder community and the youth community, because of his plan on immigration. That didn't happen with the black vote, because I had to explain this yesterday. The black vote isn't a monolith. The black vote, there was a lot of loyalty on the older population with the Obama Clinton sort of loyalty. But the youth overwhelmingly, and you guys can look this up, the young black vote overwhelmingly went to Bernie Sanders. So the thing was, they turned around and said, well, the youth didn't come out for Bernie. Bernie didn't get the black vote at all. No, he did. That's the problem. They're doing this to obfuscate the fact that they committed election fraud.
Yes, and you guys were out there election day, right? All right, so you're out there election day.
Me and Pasta, you and I were out there, the days before, the 10 days before.
Yeah. Were there a lot of Biden voters online? Were there I mean, seriously, you want to believe that? I mean, you have to think about this. And the fact is that what people should be calling for in LA is the fact is like, well, we don't have proof that it was rigged. Yeah, but you got a 1% audit. How can you sit there with a 1% audit? And it's an audit. They say, look at these. We don't even get to pick from it. You know what I'm saying? They tell us what we can audit. How can you be assured with a 1% audit, okay, that it was a fair election? And it just stings to high heaven because, it was only a few days earlier before our primary that Obama got on the phone and made the guy in 5th place the champion, and got the guy in 2nd place and Buttigieg to drop out of him, got Klobuchar to drop out for Biden. So it just seemed like a lot of stinky stuff was in.
And not only that, they had their eye on Kamala Harris since the beginning. I mean, she attended those fundraisers in New York, and what was it? It was like in Martha's Vineyard, and these very elitist, the Hamptons. She attended these fundraisers. That she was the one. The thing is, she did so bad that they got her out because they were like, okay, well, she's not going to win, but we can make her VP, and that's exactly what happened. They got Kamala, who couldn't even win her own state, out because they knew it was going to be an embarrassment. But then what did they do? They selected Biden, and they selected her as VP, knowing full well that Biden might not make it through his whole term, and Kamala would be it, because Kamala would be a threat to our like a horrible threat to our press freedoms, and either Kamala or Biden wouldn't be in charge of anything military wise. They would be awful.
You got a person in Biden who, was had a lot of say when it came to the Patriot Act. You got Kamala Harris, who said when we asked her, she still wants to take down
censorship,
censor Donald Trump's Twitter. I mean, it's just disgusting who they're putting forward there and stuff. And California is that friendly town. It's that friendly state. You got Alex Padilla, you got Nancy Pelosi, you got Gavin Newsom. You can fix an election 26 ways till Tuesday. And what Johnny's pointing out over here, he says, like, what's going on over there? He goes, he sees a computer over there. I mean, I don't know if they did it, if they sent in a bunch of ballots for Joe Biden with mail-in, or they did that and plus they flipped the switch in the back and are black box voting. Because see all those machines that count those ballots? That's all proprietary software. We can't even go in there and look. It's called black box voting. So there's no way to put a Band-Aid on the situation and go around like, hey, request your ballot, then walk it in and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't make a difference. We have to fix the systemic problems within our elections, the way we count and tabulate these things. It has to be completely open source. I think it should be counted in the same spot that the vote is casted. It should be counted. We have to deal away with these secret ballots when it comes to the mail-in ballots and the absentee ballots. There has to be an audit of sorts that we make sure that we can know completely, an autopsy when it comes to those things, because like Dr. Rebecca Mercury told us, who talks about these ballots are just so fugazi that they can be made, they're not double checked, they're not audited, whatnot, and you can just stuff the ballot box. And I think that they stuffed the ballot box for Joe Biden here in California. You can't convince me. Joe couldn't even come to the Democratic conventions. He didn't even come.
He didn't even come.
And he got all these votes.
There's no way.
And weren't the people waiting in line. So how did those votes come in? Either switching a switch in the back or they had a bunch of mail-ins. Either way. Because on the election days, there was no way these were Joe Biden people waiting in line.
And discounting a bunch of votes through provisional ballots and people who had to leave after waiting 7 hours in line.
Yeah.
To go fucking take care of their dog, their kid, whatever it was they had to do, go to work. Like, no. Like, stop. Like, we've done so much research on this. So when people like Vosh bring up, Project Veritas, I don't even have the bandwidth to have that discussion, because it's moronic idiots like that literally gaslight people back into the Democratic Party, believing that no, it's the problem lies in the voter outreach. The problem lies in Tulsi Gabbard, who's like Republican now. That, like, they're not even looking at the systemic root of the problems, and
that's
so
the thing.
That is a huge thing that I'm just sick and tired on the Dem stock left, and we're gonna go over that in a minute.
By the way, Gloria Jones says, "Trust the plan, Fee." Trust the plan. No cap, Glory.
No cap, Glory. See what you did there? Freaking pasta. Okay, and I just want to surmise exactly. We have 3 bills. Nicole Alexander Fisher, Tulsi Gabbard introduced 3 pieces of legislation to Congress yesterday for Julian Assange and Edward Snowden. 1 resolution each to drop the charges against them, as well as a bill to reform the Espionage Act and give whistleblowers greater protection. Ask your rep to support the following: H-Res 1175 to drop charges against Julian Assange, H-Res 1162 to drop charges against Edward Snowden, and H.R. 8452 to Protect Brave Whistleblowers Act to reform the Espionage Act to protect the future whistleblowers.
Very important.
3 huge, monumental pieces of legislation that could drastically change where we're going, because right now we're in fascism, we're getting worse. This would literally curtail that. Now, she's leaving Congress, which is unfortunate, because she's literally the only one that has done this. And that really upsets me, because it's like, damn, like, she was the only one, like the only Democrat, like, what's going on? And so I think she's doing what she can as right before she leaves.
Yeah, she's throwing haymakers on the way out and hoping that something lands. She also got the ballot harvesting bill last week. I mean, the woman has done so much great work on these last couple of weeks before this election, and it's a shame the way she's being attacked. But hey, now we understand. Now we know where we stand. It once again, it's the ignorance towards the issues of a lot of the neo-progressives of us, or whatever you want to call us, whatever you want to label us, but people who care about their civil liberties and want to end these regime change wars, who want to have clean and fair elections. I can't understand the clean and fair election part, how you guys are just taking it laying down. We went over these elections.
You're never going to get a progressive.
I mean, seriously, they can just sit there and they can fix these elections left and right. And there's certain things you just have to call for. You just have to call for transparency. Right? Call for transparency and free and fair elections. Yep. Right? And call for proper audits.
Even that's not a conspiracy theory. We just want fucking transparency.
Yeah.
How hard is it to have transparency in our elections?
And I just wanted to point out, because this, she's gonna get, she's already getting speared for. She's the only one working like with Republicans, Libertarians, Independents, whoever they are. Thomas Massey said, "You're welcome. The particular resolution of your son's case will have lasting implications for freedom of speech around the globe. Drop the charges. # free Assange." I don't agree with Massey like on the majority of things, but I agree with him on this. And Christine Assange also thanked them and Tulsi Gabbard for standing together across the political divide to defend press freedom, your nation's First Amendment, and justice for my son, multi-award winning persecuted journalist, # Julian Assange, # drop the charges, # free Assange.
And he was the one, Thomas Massey, won the CARES Act, which is the biggest transfer of wealth up to the top right now. That's really going to affect a lot of people. A lot of people are going to die because they're going to be so just assed out when it comes to money and resources and health care because they kicked all this money up to the top. This guy drove from Kentucky to D.C. Once again, you don't have to agree with him on everything, especially with his libertarian point of views when it comes to fiscal policy, which is like, no, buddy, I'm not there with you. But once again, calling a quarry or quandrum, whatever you call it, to make sure that people had to show up there and stuff. He still couldn't get away from the Voice Act because Nancy Pelosi, and McCarthy, they held their lines and they made sure that nobody had to go on record for their vote for the CARES Act and nobody had to explain what was what. This guy was sitting there and going, they're giving all this money up to the top. Let's put them on record. You know what I'm saying? He was the only one to do that. So once again, you can find some agreement with some people on the right who feel these issues are just as strong to them as they are to us. We should all be united on this right now when it comes to the left. I can't believe that the right, they're having more people on the right that are showing more interest when it comes to these bills, which I just put that up there real quick because I just want to say, I just want to put up HR 666 where there was some controversy.
I didn't agree with her on that.
A lot of people don't when it comes to the tracing bill, whatnot, and they felt that like they can show up to your house, test you, and if there is a family member who is tested positive or has a fever, they can take them away. Yeah. So this is the point where when it came to a lot of people on their civil liberties, a lot of libertarians.
And that was a lot of her own supporters criticized her. Yeah. So a lot of people say her supporters don't criticize her. Yes, they do actually.
They do.
Very much do. Yeah. And a lot of her supporters were like, no, this isn't. I don't agree with this. Well,
that's the soldier in her, right?
I don't agree. Yeah.
That's the soldier in her. It was like, well, this is an outbreak. I got to get Dustin Hoffman from the movie Outbreak, and we have to get the serum and find out what's going on, but we have to do what we have to do to make sure it doesn't spread. And that's something a lot of people don't agree with when it comes to our civil liberties. No. But there is a virus at the end of this situation, which is kind of pulling the strings for making the decision she's standing by. I don't agree with it whatsoever, but I can understand it. And she's so, when it comes to our civil liberties, she does lay out the work we need to lay out, and that's important right over there. So she's very balanced when it comes to it. I don't like this bill that she put out.
Yep, HR 666.
666. Dr. Buttar, not Shahid Buttar, but Dr. Buttar talked about this when it came to the situation. Contact tracing. She's trying to stop the disease, trying to stop it, get it going forward, just like the movie Outbreak, fam. Yeah. She's being Dustin Hoffman. I don't agree.
Okay, so Pasta, this is a moment we've been waiting for because we're going to go after the progressive, the hypocrisy, because Niko had a really great tweet, of course, and he said, everyone who swears Tulsi is some enemy of the left and have been obsessing over her over the last couple days are totally silent today after learning she introduced legislation to drop charges on Assange and Snowden and legislation to disallow the abuse of the Espionage Act. For any leftist who knows their history, they know that the Espionage Act has been used to foment and to torment and silence the left for decades. But I guess this is where to go back. This is where to go back pretending Tulsi doesn't exist so they don't have to put pressure on their heroes to support, huh? So like this is like just kind of like, he's calling out the like a lot of the Bernie supporters that like, they're like they've been smearing Tulsi, but they're like not going after Bernie. They're not like, hey Bernie, are you going to speak about Assange or are you going to talk about what's going on here? Like, they voting election integrity, something Bernie Sanders never touched. She has touched it. Civil liberties, something Bernie Sanders hasn't really touched. She has touched it. She has specifically mentioned Julian Assange, Edward Snowden, whistleblowers, the Espionage Act. You can't deny that. I can say, I love Bernie Sanders attacking billionaires and attacking the corporations. I think that's all great and wonderful, but I want him to do this. Like, it's not that hard. It's really not that hard. And you don't have to smear somebody just because you don't like them. You don't have to like Tulsi Gabbard to admit that all of these things she has said and done are extremely, extremely important. Grumpy Bernie Sanders, what do you say?
Pay attention to who's co-sponsor. Pay attention to who co-sponsors Tulsi's whistleblower bills, which would drop the charges for Assange and Snowden, and pay attention to those who don't. We will finally separate the imperialist and the non-imperialist. So, I mean, I guess a lot of the squad are imperialist.
I mean, we'll see. That
Hello?
it hasn't been. I mean, they haven't said anything, but it hasn't been voted on.
You know,
yet,
Nancy
so.
Pelosi's not. She's going to protect the members of Congress. She's not going to let this go to the floor. They're going to just bury this, wait for Tulsi to be out of there, and be done. Be done with it, and that's what they're going to do. So.
And it's really sad, and this is why people need to make noise, because a lot of hinges on these bills now, because at least somebody in the United States is trying to do something. So the Assange case has gotten more coverage by independent media, so it's forced people to talk about it. And if we continue this pressure, I think it's at the very least it's going to cause like a lot of public discontent.
Okay, so this is kind of a weird tweet. Daniel from Free Assange says, "Burners, we only care about policy." Yeah, right, you do. Tulsi, here's a great piece of legislation. Burners. But Tulsi said Project Veritas. Well, really, to tell you the truth, I wish burners did care about policy. I think burners care about rhetoric.
About policy.
I mean, yeah, but not all burners. A lot of people, they care about rhetoric. They, the whole virtue signaling thing. They think they're being virtuous and compassionate, and that the other side is not that way, and that's the way they got to be. But yet, when bread and butter policy comes to the table, they're going to ignore it.
I think they care about certain policy. Like, I think they care about, like, policy, domestic policy, right? Overwhelmingly. They don't really care about, like, civil liberties policies, foreign policy policies. That is in the back burner. And like I said before, I understand why it's in the back burner. I understand we live in this system where you can't pay your rent, where you don't have health care, and all of these things. But the reason we are suppressed and we are made to believe that this is the way it has to be, it's because we are being censored. It's because we don't have the freedom to really hold the government accountable. And it's because a lot of people will go out and protest social issues, but they won't go out and protest economic issues or issues like Julian Assange. I have never seen a protest in California, Los Angeles. Gloria Jones is the only one that goes and hands out flyers regarding Julian Assange at these protests, which I think is genius. She hands them both to the BLM people. She informs them, and she informs the Trump supporters of the Proud Boys. Like, hey, here, if you care about your civil liberties and the Constitution, here you go. Julian Assange is on trial, and he's about to be extradited for warning the public about U.S. crimes and for exposing this and blah blah blah. Like, I mean, you can't be a hypocrite. Like, there's hypocrites on both ends. And so it's that thing that happens with on the left where, like, I understand why you don't care about these issues, but they're completely not separate. They're all entirely connected.
Intertwined. When you go down the rabbit hole, they're connected to that. Like I said, if you don't have freedom of speech, you don't have a free press, you're not going to have anything. You don't get nice toys. You don't get your Medicare for all. You don't get your Green New Deal. That's why they've been doing it to this point right now. Why do you think so many people talk out against a Green New Deal and climate change? Is because, once again, if you control the narrative, you can control the people. And that's what they're doing. Yep. And the Democratic Party is part of that, especially the establishment leader. They control the narrative. They can control the people. And I just put that these bills further confirm that I made the right choice in supporting the Congresswoman. Tulsi Gabbard is throwing haymakers on the way out. If you want to know what a haymaker is, it's like a big wild punch that you just hope if you land. Because if you do land it, you land hard and you get something serious. Question, where are all the progressives voicing support for these important pieces of legislation? Do they not understand the urgency? Fam, they don't understand the urgency.
I think
I've been going through the Facebook feeds. I've been going through the Twitter feeds.
Well, Facebook
it's just Facebook is where I expected to see some people go, you know something? I was never crazy about Tulsi, but this is right. We need to do this here right now.
There's a few of us on the Bernie left that are like, yeah, this is like, we're supporting Assange, but it's like we're in a battle now. It's like we're being pushed. It's like I'm having my own battles, and I know my friend Ashley, like, we were talking, like, so many people are turning. Like, it's like you're being bitten. You're turning into a Biden vampire. Like they're turning into, like, they're being bitten. I keep telling people, don't turn. Like, you're turning into a zombie, like a vampire, because all these commentators on YouTube, all these people that were saying never Biden are now like, oh, we're going to vote for Joe Biden, blah, blah, blah. Instead of being focused on this stupid facade of a dumbass political election it's not even real, why are you paying attention to what really is significant right now regarding Julian Assange, regarding the fact that our freedoms are already encroached upon, and instead they're busy like trying to smear people like Tulsi Gabbard, or trying to smear people like Julian Assange and pretend that he was a horrible person. So I guess freedom of speech doesn't matter because you don't like him. Like, it's just like we like. It's really, really bad, and I think more of us need to speak out if we are against it. Especially myself as a Bernie supporter. Like, I think it's important that I call these people out, because I think there's a lot of hypocrisy on that end. There's a lot of people who are being fear-mongered, and I understand that this is a shitty situation to be in, Biden versus Trump. But you have to realize your life will not fundamentally change. And yesterday, Jonny and I did a few interviews with people who were in this hopeless encampment in Echo Park. And all of them, every single one of them, literally said they didn't care who was becoming president, because they're still going to be homeless. They're still not going to have jobs. They're still going to be in the situation they're in. That is like the crux here. You guys need to realize there are more important things happening right now than this stupid election, which is all controlled.
Yeah. John Ward Jr. says, I've been waiting to talk to everybody, but you keep looking over me and forgetting about me. So true electoral integrity, I'll keep it to myself. First of all, John, I called you the other day. I got your secretary, somebody taking your messages. I made him sure he repeated my number twice. I carved up an hour for you, John War, because we've ignored you so many times, and you did not call me back. So, John, I will call you again today. If you want to speak, we'll speak. But I did call you, and you didn't call me back. Yell at your secretary or whoever's taking your messages or your voice services and stuff like that. I did call you. Marcus Will says, too much identity politics within the progressive movement. I will not argue that, my friend. I'm sure Fiorella won't either, probably, because it's a lot of that shit going on. Donny Known, thank you for the super chat contribution. Always appreciate it on the couch, Donny Known. Just want to let you know about a documentary called Inter-Reflection from Peter Joseph coming tomorrow, which will be on YouTube. Hopefully you guys will watch it and invite him on your show eventually. Donny Known, we'll take a look at it. If you could put the link down below.
What's it about?
Inter-Reflection, fam. What's about your inter-reflection?
Fam.
I don't know. Glory Jones, Ayo Pasta, how are those calls to Villanueva going? Fam, he's not taking my calls anymore.
You called him?
He's not taking my calls anymore.
He didn't call him.
I called his office. I left a message.
You have his number. You can call him.
Oh, my God. Peter Joseph has been on the Jimmy Dore
office
show.
Skating.
Donny Known.
Office skating.
I called his office.
No, that's not the number I gave you.
All
that's
right.
like the real number.
So your friend Conrad Misty is Putin's buddy. I love Conrad Misty.
Yeah, so Misty said, dear people who hate Tulsi for whatever reason, I don't care. I truly do not give a fuck. I'm no supporter of hers either. But she is in the process of putting out 3 pieces of legislation to protect journalism and whistleblowers. And because I'm a grown-up, I can put aside whatever issues I may have with her and appreciate and respect that effort. Sometimes people you don't like will do good things. Get over yourself and deal with that. Thanks. Nice. That was like my favorite tweet ever. I was like, oh my God, like this is so great. Like I don't give a shit like how you feel about Tulsi. Like I really don't. Like I agree with her. Like this is like stop. Get over it. I don't care about Project Veritas. And all of that is completely unfounded. But it's just like the Dem socialist left is becoming super authoritarian into, if you don't fit into their little mold, you must be like some sort of like, well, and then Jacobin the other day was arguing that we need, like, we don't want to replace liberalism. We just want to go beyond it. And I just went after them like, oh, really? You're never going to have socialism if you have liberalism. What the hell's wrong with you? You have to like replace it. What do you mean? Like, and so it's this whole like, gatekeeping that they do, but it's also like this whole like gaslighting where they're trying to sheep herd people back into the Democratic Party when the Democratic Party has zero possibility of being salvaged. Zero. Yeah. Period.
Your other tweet right here.
So I just said Congresswoman Gabbard is the only Democrat pushing legislation to help journalists, Assange, and whistleblowers, and she's getting smeared by the Demsoc left, while AOC is hailed as she is silent and pushing for censorship. It's glaringly obvious who's here for clout and who's here for real.
Boom.
So
I may be a lefty commie and no Tulsi, and I disagree on some issues, but I can see who's really putting in actual policy talk over talk and hot takes. Others can too. It just takes them getting their head out of their rear of the people they've single-handedly deified into celebrity gods to do it.
Yeah, they're too busy like being up AOC's ass and like this whole clique, Mean Girl squad that they've created and worshiping the progressives to really like be like, oh, okay, this is actually a good thing. I should probably support that. I should probably be talking to my congressman about it. I should probably be, covering this if I'm a commentator instead of covering, Ilhan Tulsi agrees with Project Veritas smears on Ilhan Omar, or Tulsi smears Ilhan Omar. Why? Because it gets you a lot of clicks. That gets you a lot of likes. It's popular to really lie and really jump into this like hot take of, ooh, Tulsi's a Republican now. Oh, like it's so popular. If it was about popularity, we wouldn't be fucking here.
Ooh. Like, fam, AOC 2024.
Fam. Please don't make me slap you.
AOC 2024. I mean, she's done nothing. Oh, wait. She does have a good bill when she wants to take away ads for the military on Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
On Twitch. Excuse me.
On Twitch.
Great bill.
Okay, so she said, so this is what happened, okay? Twitter comms said, tweets that wish or hope for death, seriously bodily harm, or fatal disease against, quote, anyone are not allowed to and will need to be removed. This does not automatically mean suspension. Okay, so her whole point was that a lot of people were asking, were threatening her and Ilhan and the squad with death threats. I don't agree with death threats, but you have to be very specific about what is a death threat and what do you mean by that, because it's a slippery slope again. But she has multiple times now. This isn't the first time. She has called for censorship. So calling, even though death threats aren't good, calling for more censorship is also not the solution. Because yes, Twitter is really like, I have seen like Black people be called horrible names. I have seen all this crap, and Twitter doesn't do shit. Now they're gonna say, oh, you can't make death threats against the president. And I get the sentiment of, well, you can't make threats against him, so you can make threats against me. But the point isn't more censorship.
Yeah,
the point is no censorship.
And the fact is that they're not making death threats. They're wishing death. Wishing death upon somebody is different than saying, I hope you die. I'm going to come to your house and kill you. That's inciting violence and stuff like that. And if you're saying, oh, dude, I wish Donald Trump dies. Like, that's different than saying, I mean, it's totally different and whatnot. And when you start opening up Pandora's box, like we talked about this when she had the opportunity to win Congress, and I thought she was going to go, she had her mind right now on when it came to Cambridge Analytica and, all those other things when it came to, Facebook and Twitter and stuff. She pivoted to like, well, why aren't you taking down these people who are making fake news and talking shit about candidates or whatnot and everything? Like, she was actually pushing censorship. And then she was very thankful when Twitter made a new plan that entities had to label themselves, you know what I'm saying, censor their own material of sorts. She was pushing that as well. She's for censorship. Once again, we talk about this too. If the Squad is the new Democratic Party, go have fun with that, because they are nowhere to be found when it comes to civil liberties. They are nowhere to be found when it comes to elections. They are nowhere to be found when it comes to regime change war. They don't know shit about nuclear weapons. They don't know anything. They haven't done any good legislation. And I hate the hypocrisy of them. Ilhan Omar talking about, oh, she's put out a bill that cancels rent and everything. Well, let me ask you a question, Ilhan. Why were you stomping your feet and pushing against the CARES Act when you had the opportunity to? It's like you're just virtue signaling here and saying these pieces of things that are never going to come to fruition. You already gave your power by saying, let's go and pass the CARES Act. And now you want to sit there and say, let's give rent forgiveness. Too late.
And not to mention that all of them are pushing Biden right now, like drastically. So, yeah.
So, that was a big section. Do we have any more super chats? Did I miss them? Okay, let's get to the second part real quick. We're almost at 375 people over there. We're 22 on Rokfin, so we're above our pars. Really good job. Okay, listen, so not that I want to harp on this real quick, but I just want to go over this once again because we just had a little bit more information come out there. And the dangers of this, whatnot, and once again, people on the left just completely ignoring this. How the DNC hired CrowdStrike to frame Russia for the attack. So it talks about the U.S. Director of National Intelligence, John Ratcliffe, recently declassified information indicating the CIA obtained intelligence in 2016 that the Russians believed that the Clinton campaign was trying to falsely associate Russia with the so-called hack on the DNC computers. So the Russians knew about it, right? And this has got to make Jimmy Dore smile from here to here.
He's like, ha!
Because he talked about this. Jimmy Dore was getting mocked when he was saying, no, it was made up. It was made up by Robbie Mook and whatnot, and they tested the waters with this. They used their media to test it with Joy-Ann Reid and stuff like that. Like, all of a sudden, it was like, wait a second. WikiLeaks is coming out with a lot of this information. They're going to start dropping this stuff about what the DNC is doing. And the DNC, what were they doing? They threw the red herring out there, and they said, no, it's Russia. it's Russia, and a lot of people bought into it. CIA Director John Brennan shared the intelligence with President Obama. So Obama knew. They knew, in other words, that the DNC was conducting a false Russian flag operation against the Trump campaign. The following is an exclusive excerpt from the Russia Lie that tells the amazing story in detail. So pretty much what had happened is that the Podesta, and Jimmy Dore talked about this to the T. He goes, no, they made this up right now. They're throwing their biggest attack on them, on their partner. And that's what they did. Obama knew about it. Mm-hmm. The defense, the intelligence department participated in it. And it's just kind of messed up right now, fam, that we're sitting here right now. And also, Moon Over Alabama did this awesome article on it, too, as well. They pointed it out. They had the letter. Everything's declassified. So the context of why we're putting up this is when we hear a lot of people saying that Donald Trump said he's not going to give over power when he loses and stuff. Well, what the hell was this? This was an actual coup right over here.
Yeah.
This was an actual coup where they didn't want incoming power to take over, so they used the intelligence department to sick it on Donald Trump, make up these lies, spin the whole United States and the whole world into this Russia, United States Cold War thing where they said that Vladimir Putin was actually participating in our elections to fix it at the behest of Donald Trump.
And
they made it up. They should go to jail for this shit. This is an actual coup when you don't want to give up power.
I just want to point out something that Caitlin Johnstone put. It's hilarious. So the Washington Post put this article, the U.S. may be safe from foreign interference in this election, but what about perception hacking? And she quoted them. Russia and other adversaries may not need to hack the election if they can hack something else, our minds. This is a literal article on the Washington Post. Like, it is, I mean, I'll
they
put
all
it in there
participated in it. And we saw
like
Joyanne
insane.
Reid that night of election night when she was sitting there talking about, we need to look into this. She was all of a sudden starting. I was like, what the hell is going on over here? They're starting to cite the Russians as the Russians trying to work for Donald Trump. I'm like, wait a second. If the Russians were working for anybody, they'd probably work for Bernie Sanders, right? If you're a Russian, wouldn't you want the real socialist to get in there? Who's going to really talk about pulling back our troops? Who's going to talk about defunding NATO? Who's going to talk about not going, who's going to talk about a nuclear arms deal? I mean, that's going to be, lowering our nuclear weapons. That's going to be Bernie Sanders. So if Putin was going to cheat for anybody, he would have cheated for Bernie Sanders. The Russians knew about this. The intelligence community knew about this. Obama knew about this. It was made up by Robbie Mook and Podesta and the Clintons. And what they did, they should go to jail for, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, just think about the magnitude of this thing. You know what I'm saying? Johnny, this is years after. What's your opinion about them making up this whole story that you still hear to this day? Russiagate, Putin. Biden was going, this is Putin's puppet over here.
Yeah, it's modern day McCarthyism. I mean, that's what it is. There's got to be a boogeyman. Focus everybody on the fear mongering and on the boogeyman, and then don't look at what's happening over here. It's classic deception.
Red herring.
Hey, Glory Jones, what is Russia backwards? Because mirror backwards. I just wanted to, because it's Q. It's the blue QAnon. Aaron Matei called it that. It's the blue QAnon. Russiagate is the blue QAnon. It is as ridiculous
QAnon for
as
wine
that.
moms.
It is. It's just as ridiculous. And what Caitlin Johnson posted was like they're literally saying that Russia is hacking your mind. Like, I mean, this is how far they've gone. Russia is hacking my mind. Russia here, Russia. Like, I think we need a skit. We need to make a skit. This is like, it is just too ridiculous. So
Ren Sten put this up too. William Benny, who was an ex he used to work for intelligence. He pointed out how base these lies were. Right? Okay. And you all know whose name it was. FBI's preserved the lies, CIA's make it up, and the USA loses their mind. You know what I'm saying? So the CIA helped make it up, the FBI helped preserve it. You had Comey go in there, and once again, it talks
and you
about
had the
Comey in
media,
an article.
the mainstream media.
The media, they did their little work. They were the lapdog of the establishments. They put it out there, and they kept on perpetuating this. That now people just Russiagate like it's nothing.
Yeah.
McCarthyism like nothing.
Like
they
it's
still
fact.
throw it out there like it's a
the
fact.
same shit.
And it was all a lie. And Comey, once again, another guy just like Brennan, just like Clapper, sat there and lied. Russia's interfering in our elections. Oh yeah. Whether you're a Republican or Democrat, that shouldn't matter. What matters now is we should come together and defeat Russia and what they're doing because they're trying to hack your minds. Like, really, to make you believe, like, the fact is, Putin becomes Rasputin, and it's a bunch of memes, the Jesus Christ, Bernie Sanders memes, and the rainbow really convinced people and swayed people elsewhere. Nobody talked
That
about
convinced
Cambridge
me.
Analytica. Nobody talked about Cambridge Analytica,
Bernie
which was
Jesus.
really the real one. What they're doing
Rainbow.
is they're taking your information, and they're getting a digital footprint, and they're spinning it back against
Putin
you.
likes to insert things and plant things on everybody, fam. Don't you know?
Yes, I do.
He's my
Yeah,
boyfriend.
Bill Benny talked about this too, and they even asked in that case when Comey was there, when he was there before Congress, did you get a hold of the servers yourself? No, but CrowdStrike did, and CrowdStrike is a reputable. No, CrowdStrike is not. CrowdStrike is in the Ukraine and has an anti-Putin CEO that would have done whatever. And and here's the thing too, they had information 3 years ago. Adam Schiff knew it. They also spun this out of control, where they knew that they had no empirical evidence that the Russians hacked the DNC servers. None whatsoever. None whatsoever.
And instead of spending so much time on Russiagate, they could have spent time, like defending Julian Assange or finding ways to protect our whistleblowers. No, instead they freaking created this whole facade to really completely distract from the fact that they were rigging their own elections, that they are corrupt, to distract from the fact of their war crimes, to distract from because this is all happening around the same time, like the release of all these things, and like it's so clear to the public. This is why you should be as outraged and as against neo-McCarthyism and blue QAnon with the Russiagate as you should about QAnon. Like I don't like QAnon, but I also Russiagate is just as conspiratorial as that, and you have to call both of them out, or you are a fraud, you are a hypocrite, you are a stooge, you're a moron. Like I don't know how many things to call you if you're still going to perpetuate Russiagate. And it's the same thing that these YouTubers literally do, like when they perpetuate these smears that the mainstream media is doing. So now they're co-opting they're trying to co-opt this information to change, to frame your mind and change the narrative.
Yeah, and it's one thing QAnon was talking about individuals, a secret society. With Russiagate, they were talking about an actual head of state coming in and hacking our elections. I mean, it's just crazy.
So I have one last thing in the news.
Yes.
It's breaking. No, that was it.
Gotcha.
Breaking. England's appeals court rules in favor of the Venezuelan Bolivarian government of Nicolas Maduro and the consideration of the return of $1 billion in gold de facto stolen by Andrew Bailey's Bank of England after Boris Johnson's backed coup leader Juan Guaido. So this is actually a victory for the Bolivarian government against the West, even though the West is continuously infringing upon everybody's rights. This is actually showing a tide turn. This is really good news.
Can you see the conversation? Juan, I'm sorry, it just didn't work, Juan. I mean, I know they stood up for you in the Congress of the United States, but I'm going to have to consider giving back the gold to the country of the rightful elected leader. We tried, Juan. It just didn't work. I mean, I had COVID. I'm sorry. I'm Boris Johnson. Vote for me again.
I was busy engaging in multiple affairs.
I apologize. It didn't work. I'm going to have to give back their gold.
Yep.
Juan, I apologize. You can stay here in Her Majesty's castle with us, but unfortunately, the gold's going to have to go back to the people of Venezuela because that's the rightful leader.
So victory for the Chavistas Bolivarian government of Venezuela. We have to keep protecting them. They're literally one of the only strongholds right now of socialism in Latin America because of our doing and the West, of course.
We should protect democracies. If we're talking about democracies, we want to
stay the fuck out.
They rightfully have a leader over there. We should stay the hell out. That was another thing that Bernie Sanders, when Robert Waters from Pink Floyd said, "Oh, come on.
Come on, buddy.
Bernie, you have to speak up. Hands off Venezuela." So, I mean, we got some super chats real quick. Let's get through them real quick just to make sure. Oh, a couple more coming up here, guys. They don't want the show to end. That's what happened. Yeah. Wait, I make sure when I read them. Okay, Glory Jones. Oh, Donny Known. What's the best way to send you the link? Johnny? convocouch@gmail.com or just send it to convocouch@gmail.com. Here, you read Glory's right there.
Why do I have to? Okay, think mirror, Asur. Asur. Okay, Asur is Russia backwards. Think Asur. Remove that eye, you get Asur, the Mesopotamian sun god. What happens in the sun? Nuclear fusion. Think nukes. If you keep Russiagating, we get nuclear warfare. So don't Russiagate. She's making fun of it. It's so funny. Thank you, FY, for the super chat contribution.
All right. Johnny, anything else?
Real quick.
Here we go.
Mummy tomb has been sealed for 2,500 years. Has been opened for the first time.
Wow.
What was in there? Just a doll?
It's a mummy tomb. It's a mummy. It's a human. How long? 2,500. Wow. You know, I used to love Egyptian stuff when I was young.
What's in there now? Is that a person in there? They gotta.
It's a mummy.
So can they open up that mummy? Can we see what's going on?
No. No, you don't open up. You open up that, and then the later on the archaeologists go.
Yeah, I want to see that when that gets.
No, that's gotta be careful which mummies you open up. You don't want the mummy to come after you. You know, we saw that Ben Fraser.
Dude, the Rock will protect us.
The Rock will protect.
The Rock will protect us against the mummies. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Johnny, anything else?
That was
Had
a great
22
show.
people on Rokfin. Thank you so much. If you haven't gone to the Rokfin, ROKFIN. Roger Waters pasta. Yes, Pijman, I know. He called us the something sofa. What'd you call us, Pijman? He called us something.
Fake news. We also have a PayPal, you guys, if you guys want to contribute in that way. What's the PayPal? At the Convo Couch, correct? Johnny?
It's in the description.
Yeah, but what is it? So we can tell them.
The link, and there's another link.
PayPal.me/the Convo Couch.
It's down there below, guys. You can find it down below. And you can help us out if you can. And also, thank you to our Patreons, our patrons. Thank you, Fiorella, for the Truth Night Convo. Love, Goddess is real. Aw, where she says good night. I don't know where you're at, FY, but thank you for your Super Chat contributions. If you haven't gone over to the Rokfin, ROKFIN, go on over there, endorse us if you can. Thank you to our Patreons. We have some 123 of you. We really do appreciate it, and thank you for all the Super Chats today.
Make calls to your Congress people if you are in the United States to support these bills.
Yeah,
please.
And tell them to
most
forgive
important.
rent, too. Cancel rent.
Well, they're not going to do any of it.
Cancel rent.
We need to make as much noise, and we're going to have Slow News Day. Talk
Tomorrow.
About what's happened since the trial, and tomorrow at 5 p.m., correct?
Yep,
Okay.
5 p.m. tomorrow.
All right, guys, from Fiorella.
And Johnny, Sue, and Pasta.
Convo out. #Free Assange.
Peace.